Vault Nation, happy Monday. It is Super Bowl week, and it is February 3rd. January is now in the rearview mirror. It is 12:27 Eastern here in the afternoon. We appreciate your patience. When a perfect storm pregame happens of breaking news and stuff on the back end, technically speaking, that goes awry, that's kind of the reality of it. So we appreciate your patience. Thank you for all the love that you've been giving me on social media as I work my way back from the longest sickness of my life. I'm still not there yet, but we're gutting through it. Sarah Ellison, Bobby Trossett, great to be with you, partner. Thank you for all the help. And I know you're dealing with a lot over there as well. So let's get to it, huh?
Oh, it's funny because finally in about, 2 weeks, we have a chance at starting on time because we're together again. And then I have massive computer issues. So for those wondering at home, I'm using my camera my phone as my camera, and then my computer for my audio. So that's why you see two different things of me, and that's why we're late. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to try to fix it after today's show.
Look, you have been carrying this show for weeks. How can anybody get mad at a little technical thing behind the scenes? So again, we appreciate all of your patience. We've got a jam-packed show to get to, and it's going to be a jam-packed day as well. I am still in line to fly to New Orleans tonight for a week of Radio Row events. We'll be doing our show. I'll be there. You'll be in Columbus. We're looking forward to the content to come this week and hopefully tracking down a bunch of folks that can give us some Baltimore perspective in very spontaneous nature. You know how it goes in Radio Row. So we look forward to all that and more. The breaking news today, as you've probably already gathered, is the fact that reigning Defensive Player of the Year Myles Garrett has officially requested a trade out of Cleveland. And while it's probably unlikely that he comes to Baltimore, barring something unforeseen, it is a big deal for the Ravens, obviously, and a big deal for the AFC North and really the entire NFL landscape at large. So we're getting into the specifics of that. Marlon Humphrey, Sarah, for whatever reason, still feels confident in his ability to recruit in free agency, even though his track record is kind of lacking, as we all know. So we'll get into what he did at the Pro Bowl. We'll also get into some highlights from the Pro Bowl games weekend, this past weekend in Orlando, and Peyton Manning's advice, some tough love maybe for Lamar Jackson. So all that and more, but we begin with the breaking news, and here it is. Myles Garrett has requested a trade out of Cleveland. He put forth this statement on his social media platforms, and it read, "As a kid dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl, and that goal fuels me today more than ever. My love for the community of Northeast Ohio and the incredible fan base of the Cleveland Browns has made this one of the toughest decisions of my life. These past 8 years have shaped me into the man that I am today. While I've loved calling this city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested to be traded from the Cleveland Browns." And Sarah, I know I see a lot of the live chat likening this to Lamar Jackson's trade request from a couple of years ago. To me, there's one big difference. One player was using it as leverage and probably wanted to stick around with his organization. The other, being this most recent one, wants nothing to do with his current organization, and can you blame him?
Yeah, listen, I get it. This very well could be a negotiating tactic. But everything I have seen from the Browns is obviously they want Myles Garrett. There's no reason for them to move on from Myles Garrett. He's the only light that they have, quite frankly, the only light. And so when Lamar Jackson was using that as leverage, they had been trying to negotiate for well over a year, perhaps two years, maybe longer, beyond what we may know. Whereas Lamar Jackson was with an organization that is known throughout sports, not just football, as one of the top-notch organizations around all professional sports. And he knew how far he could get with this team in terms of the team around him and the fact that they're constant playoff contenders always in the conversation for a Super Bowl, even though it's Patrick Mahomes that keeps dominating it from the AFC. And so whereas Myles Garrett has no hope. Myles Garrett can make money wherever he wants. He's going to get a big contract wherever he wants. So why wouldn't he want it in the Browns? We all know why, because we're in the same division. They have a quarterback that is under contract with fully guaranteed money. They cannot get out of it. And he hasn't really been able to play. He's missed more games than he's played. And so I personally put a lot more weight into this trade request than I did for Lamar Jackson, given the fact that there is no future with the Cleveland Browns in terms of winning.
Not a chance. And look at this too. As Ari tweeted, the Browns would take on over $36 million in dead money if they traded Myles due to the multiple contract restructures he's had over the years. And he also goes on to write, Cleveland's been adamant that it isn't trading him, creating an awkward situation with their superstar. Pretty awkward indeed, especially when the general manager, Andrew Berry, just last week had this to say. If someone sees you at dinner and says, we'll give you, and this was a reporter that was asking him, if someone sees you at dinner and says, we'll give you 2 ones, meaning 2 first-rounders for Myles, do you say I'm not interested? And Andrews stood 10 toes down, Sarah, and said, correct. You can put that on the record. So, boy, here we go, Cleveland. Your offseason has officially begun.
Well, listen, I 1,000% believe Andrew Berry and the Cleveland Browns that they do not want to trade Myles Garrett. I believe that because no franchise team would, especially when he's the only light to your organization. That being said, Myles Garrett has been completely professional his entire Browns career. And he hasn't been a Deontay Johnson complaining or this and that. And so when there's a chance that you could still have him, you have to turn down all hypothetical offers that are given to you from the media. You're not going to even give him a modicum of a doubt that you don't want him there, because you do want him there. But that all changes when Myles Garrett officially makes his trade request known. That changes everything. And so you can say, yeah, I wouldn't take 2 ones. But if you have a player who's saying, I don't want to play for you anymore, there's no deal to be had, even if you pay me top dollar, because I've been getting top dollar. Let me put it this way. I'm going to get top dollar no matter where I go. And there's no future for this franchise given what you've done with the salary cap outside of me, especially at the quarterback position. And so he's going to change his tune, Andrew Berry will, if Myles Garrett just isn't even willing to come back. Okay? So no matter what, they're going to lose a lot of dead money, as has already been pointed out. And so right now, he's under contract for the next 2 years, in 2025 and 2026. So in 2025, his cap hit is just south of 20 million. And in 2026, it's just north of 20 million. That's completely fair money for what Myles Garrett brings to the table. Completely fair money. So, Bobby, talking about how this impacts the Ravens, there's kind of 2 components to this. The first side is, holy crap, Myles Garrett may be just leaving the AFC North. Okay. We know that the Browns did upset the Ravens once last year. Myles Garrett and the defense being a massive reason for that. Kiss those upsets goodbye if you have to continue forward with Deshaun Watson and nobody even close to the caliber of Deshaun Watson over there. Because the Ravens don't need those kind of upsets anymore. He's the reason why an upset can even be thought of. Okay, so those upsets are gone. Meanwhile, of course, everybody in Baltimore is asking themselves, especially since we just saw a completely stunning trade in the NBA. So now people are feeling like, oh, well, maybe what if? What if? Is it actually possible that not only would Myles Garrett leave the Cleveland Browns, most likely leaving the AFC North because the Steelers aren't going to get him. They have TJ Watt. The Bengals are far too cheap to get somebody like Myles Garrett. So everybody in Baltimore is just wondering, just in the back of their heads, as unrealistic as they feel it is. And Spencer Schultz probably voiced that best this morning so far on Twitter. He tweets, "There are franchise-defining moments available, just being available, once every half decade or so. It's not every day somebody of this caliber is even available." Spencer goes on to say, "This is that moment for the Ravens. Myles Garrett will win you a championship with what you have now. You have 11 picks in this draft. The money will be tight, but can be bent to work." Then Spencer says, "Do it. Do it." In a follow-up tweet, he says what you already acknowledged, that this could just be a negotiation tactic. And then he says the Ravens should send 2 firsts for Garrett. Now, Andrew Berry already said he wouldn't accept that. But again, if the player isn't willing to come to the table, maybe they would. It's all going to be about what the market will offer. So the question kind of here is, Bobby, like, what percent chance could this? I'll just say this. Even if the Ravens were to make an offer, it seems to me that there are more desperate organizations than the Ravens. And no matter what they offer, somebody else would come out and offer more. What do you think?
Yeah, it'd be so out of character, right? Like,
Yeah.
Spenny is putting the proper spin on this. Like, the magnitude of this moment feels very franchise defining, but that doesn't take away from how uncharacteristic it would be for the Baltimore Ravens to go make a splash like this. And for Cleveland to be a willing trade partner in division, I mean, please. Yeah, it just feels like that is a long shot of all long shots. But there's no question that this is a disgruntled player. His prime years have been wasted. And to think about another rebuild for a player of his caliber who's not getting any younger, I can't imagine him a Cleveland Brown. I can't imagine the general manager not buckling at some point throughout this process.
Right. And Bobby, let me add, he's going to have to buckle if Myles Garrett wants him to buckle. I mean, I guess since he has him under contract for 2 more years, Myles Garrett would have to sit out. So Andrew Berry could call his bluff and say, "Hey, you're under contract. You're going to lose out on all this money if you don't come and play." So he does have that leverage, because it's not like this is just like nearing the end, right? They still have him under contract for 2 more years. Just to back up a tiny bit. Yeah, when you say he's lost his prime years, I mean, he's only got so many left, right? He's going to be 30 this upcoming year. That's why he's doing
perennial, this. You know what I mean? Exactly. Yeah. He's been a perennial candidate for Defensive Player of the Year for years now. And the guy has not played meaningful football in the month of January. He just has not had that opportunity. Right. It's a complete waste. And so part of this too is doing right by your franchise player.
Right.
And they have not done that. They just simply have not done right by the face of their franchise. And people could say that that's Deshaun Watson. Think again on that one. Myles Garrett is the face of this franchise and has been since the moment he was drafted.
Absolutely. I would hate, I just feel like, because Myles Garrett has been such a pro the entire time he's been with the Browns. He did have a decent chance in January when Joe Flacco came in last year, right? Like, it was a decent chance. They were on quite a run there.
He has played January football. Thank you for correcting that. Meaningful January football, that's probably up for debate.
I gotta tell you, I thought that the Ravens and the Browns were going to eventually meet. I thought that fate was going to have that happen where Flacco was going to face off against his former team in January. So I thought it was legitimate, but then Joe Flacco threw those 2 pick sixes and it all went down the drain. But to your point, overall, this team is going nowhere. And so if you do want to do right by your franchise player who's saying, you know what, we've had some time together, we've both treated each other well, but I have to move on, and you have to admit to yourself that you're stuck with Deshaun Watson. Can you please let me go? Go out and get the best deal that you can, right? And start building for the future, but let me go. So kind of bringing this back to the Ravens is we're not only talking about about 2 firsts plus for Garrett, if Andrew Berry's saying, okay, I'm not just taking 2 firsts. On top of that, from a Ravens point of view, you are for sure going to have to unload one of these players. Now, Marcus Williams, I know he's on this list. This list that I just showed on the screen for the audio only people. This is your highest paid. This is your biggest cap hits in the upcoming season. And you're going to have to unload somebody here. Because you can't take on $19 million and just restructure till the cows come home, because then you're just hurting yourself by potentially having Myles Garrett and Lamar Jackson on the same team anyway. Like, you would have to let go of somebody like a Roquan Smith. We've already talked about Mark Andrews potentially being traded at Ravens salary cap. Brian McFarland said that he would trade Mark Andrews. I mean, we're talking like Nnamdi Madubuike, something like that. Because if you trade for Myles Garrett, you're not going to do it just for the next 2 years. You're going to want to sign him long-term.
You want that guy to finish his career as a Raven, ideally.
Right. And so you would have to give up like a Roquan. Like, to me, it's not just draft picks. To me, it would be like, there's got to be like a Roquan swap or a Nnamdi Madubuike type swap. I mean, and I'm only bringing that up not because I'm saying, yeah, let him go. I'm just saying you would need that sizable contract off of your books in order to sign on Myles Garrett for the long haul.
Right. Well, this will be something we'll be monitoring closely. Just came down the pike earlier today. Of course, everybody, media and alike, are going to be convening in New Orleans this week for Super Bowl coverage, and then the NFL Combine's not far away. So a lot of general managers are going to be within close proximity, in other words, of one another in the coming weeks. Shall we get to our lone super chat before we talk about Peyton Manning's advice to Lamar?
Sure.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I want to make sure I get this pronunciation right, because I'm pretty sure my guy DB DM'd me on Instagram here, but now I'm struggling to remember if it's Devon or, oh man, Devon, you have to hit me up and make sure I'm not botching this again. And if so, I'm blaming it on the flu. All right. But Devon says, 1, welcome back, Bobby Big Dog. 2, if there is any way the Ravens could get him, it should get done. But Cleveland would never send him here. Hashtag Voltrons, making his vote known for our nickname.
To his point, like I said, even if the Ravens were to make an offer, if anybody is even in the same ballpark, they're going to go with somebody else to get him out of the division.
Yeah.
Right? So say like the Ravens offer, I don't know, 2 firsts and like one of those players that we just talked about. And then say the Commanders come along and they offer something similar, 2 firsts and another, big time player. They're going to go with the Commanders. So unless like Myles Garrett like demands, do you know what I mean? Like there would have to be so much to go right. Or the Browns have made so many terrible, bad decisions in the past. Like if you needed hope, that would be where you hang your hat for hope. Is that it's just like, okay, well, like the smart organizations would never send a superstar like this to the division rival. But we're talking about the Browns. So maybe there's hope that they would make another poor decision in the universe of the Deshaun Watson poor decision.
Just to reiterate this, just in case we haven't made it clear, what's absolutely earth-shaking is in the event that he leaves the division, you're not seeing this problem 2 times a year the way they have since the end of the league. Yeah. So that's obviously significant in itself. And by the way, let me correct myself, because I went back to my DMs and sure enough, I botched it again. Davon.
Davon.
Davon. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. And sorry for botching it again. I will no longer say Davon. Thanks for the super chat. Let's get to Dre Dogs as well. Dre Dog 679 says, this might not be the most popular opinion, but Myles Garrett and Lamar Jackson are the two most wasted players by franchises in NFL history. Ravens wasted Lamar's rookie years, and the Browns are just a mess. Big hot take from Dre. We'll let the live chat discuss that. We got lots to get to over the course of the next, well, we'll see how long it takes. So Peyton Manning and Lamar Jackson, Sarah, have been compared to one another because of their slow starts, as we know, to the postseason. Now, Peyton went on to become a two-time Super Bowl champion, one in Indianapolis, and of course, one to finish up his career in Denver. All of us hope that Lamar is on a similar trajectory, but speaking of trajectory, what we know for sure is that these guys' first 7 seasons, and Lamar just finished up his, he just finished up his 8th NFL season, correct?
It is 7th. You were right. You still there?
Peyton's first 7 seasons mirrors what Lamar's first 7 seasons has been. And really, the overarching takeaway is that there's been a lot left to be desired in January for both players. Peyton's first 7 seasons and Lamar's first 7 shots at this. You pulled in some content from the McAfee show for us about what Peyton had to say.
Yeah, so they were actually asking Peyton a question in terms of like Josh Allen, that Josh Allen is now 0-4 against Josh Allen is now 0-4 against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in the postseason. So they set this up as a what type of message do you give Josh? But then Peyton added Lamar Jackson in there, named him by name. And obviously he drew upon his own career in the advice he gives. There's some encouraging advice, but also there's some tough advice that I think is excellent that both Josh and Lamar are going to have to take in. So here is Peyton Manning on the Pat McAfee show.
What is that kind of like as a quarterback who kind of can't get over that one team, that one player, every single offseason going in with the same feeling against the same team?
Yeah, look, I can relate. I mean, I lived that life, and I sent Josh a text voice memo after the game and just telling him how much I enjoyed watching him play this year and how well he competed, and just to keep his head up, keep grinding, keep sawing wood. Look, I lived that life. Tom Brady and the Patriots beat us back-to-back playoff years, once in the AFC Championship, once in the divisional round, and that's all you hear about all offseason. Yeah, but had a great season. Yeah, but you can't beat the Patriots in the postseason. And then 2 years later, we did it. We beat them in the AFC Championship, win the Super Bowl. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go crawl in a hole and feel sorry for yourself? Or are you going to just keep fighting and keep grinding? I would rather, and I think Josh Allen and Lamar feel the same way, have their hearts ripped out in the AFC Championship by 3 points, as opposed to finishing 7-10.
Yeah. And
you probably smoke a cigar in that locker room after that last win because you're kind of in a good mood and you feel kind of good. The truth is you're a bad team and you're so far away. Would you rather be 7-10 or have your heart ripped out by being close? I'd rather have my heart ripped out because that means they're close. And Josh Allen's close. Lamar's close. They will get there. I believe it. It's just, look, they're not losing to bad teams. Last time I checked, Mahomes and the Chiefs, there's a reason they're in the Super Bowl. They're a good team, right? We lost to the Patriots. It sucked. I hated it, but they were the better team. And so I think Josh and Lamar will both get there, but until then, they have to own it, and they are doing it. They're not hiding from it, and I think their time will come.
So Pat McAfee show transcribed part of it. This is what they focused on. Quote, would you rather be 7-10 or would you rather have your heart ripped out in the AFC Championship? I'd rather have my heart ripped out, and I think the time will come for Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. I've been saying that too, Bobby. I know you feel that way. I do believe that Lamar Jackson will win a Super Bowl. It unfortunately doesn't always come, right away the way it has for Pat Mahomes, or as often as it does for him or a Tom Brady. And so I agree with him that the time will come. And I also agree, of course, I'd rather have my heart ripped out. I mean, Lamar gets criticized nonstop for a variety of reasons, but part of the reason is because he is so close. Nobody's talking about some of these other teams that like can finish with a win on week 17 but aren't in the playoffs. Nobody's really talking to them about them as much as you're talking about Lamar or even Josh Allen, because why even talk about it? Like, they're not close. They're almost not even worth all the critique and the criticism. All this criticism is usually saved up for the elite players of the NFL, and it goes across all sports. But my favorite part of what he said is he says, what are you going to do? You're going to go crawl in a hole and feel sorry for yourself? You have to keep fighting. He says you own it and you don't hide from it. And then he said both Lamar and Josh Allen are doing that. And I agree. That's why when Lamar Jackson wins, in my opinion, will win that third MVP Thursday night at NFL Honors, I hope he enjoys it and recognizes the apps that he will be one of 6 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL to have 3 MVPs. He absolutely soaks it up and is not ashamed of it because his career isn't over. It's not over. Once you add up these 3 MVPs and maybe more, because Bobby, the insane part is that when he wins this, he will have become the youngest quarterback in league history to get 3. Bobby, it's insane. Johnny Unitas, for him to get his third one, he was 34. When Brady got his first, he was 30. When Aaron Rodgers got his third, he was 37. When Peyton Manning got his third, he was 32. Brett Favre was the closest. He was 29 because he had 3 in back-to-back-to-back years. Don't hide from it because there's nothing to hide from. You're going up against one of the greatest of all time. And yes, he's also lost to Josh Allen. But neither one of them have gotten past Patrick Mahomes. Don't hide from it. Don't allow yourself to be shamed into not enjoying what will become an absolutely historic third MVP. Own it, but also own your MVPs and enjoy them. Don't hide. You got to live with it. I listened to Charles Barkley this morning, and he was talking about, because he was talking about the Luka trade. He was like, listen, I've got to live with it. I never got a championship. Neither did Ewing. Neither did Karl Malone. And he named off all these greats, and he has to live with it because he was in those Michael Jordan eras. There is plenty of greatness that haven't gotten over the GOATs, but Lamar's career is nowhere near over. So don't hide from it. Don't be ashamed from your success and follow his advice. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Keep fighting. And if he does that, he will eventually get over the hump.
Well, especially when the team just announced a key piece to that puzzle of getting over the hump, and that is retaining their offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, who, according to reports, had signed a contract extension within the last week to stay in Baltimore, and that has just become team official. Officially official. The Ravens have tweeted out that Todd Monken has indeed signed a contract extension to stay in Baltimore. So year 3 with Monk as the play caller coming up this fall.
That is absolutely excellent news, as I've said even before he started getting those requests to interview him. I had said for quite some time that I don't want to see him go. Are we both sharing the screen? Or is it? There we go. There it is. Official contract extension. A continuity with your offensive coordinator is absolutely imperative. Absolutely imperative. So I'm glad that Lamar Jackson does not need to start over. And not only is he not starting over with a new offense in 2025, but he's going to continue on with an offensive coordinator that has empowered him, that has opened him up to be able to showcase what he can do passing wise, what he can do at the line of scrimmage, what he can do with diagnosing defenses. who in the vast majority of categories are either number 1 or top 3 in offensive categories. This is absolutely excellent news. I'm happy to hear that it is official.
Ditto. Todd Monken, if you're just tuning in, has officially signed a contract, and a contract extension, that is, to stay in Baltimore. As you can see here up on the screen, the Ravens made it team official. And even though we've already covered it here, Sarah covered it thoroughly, this is now something that you can put in ink for the 2025 season and perhaps even beyond. And the terms were not disclosed, so we'll have to wait for those.
If they come at all, oftentimes coaching money never hits the news.
No doubt.
It's not like the salary cap where they have to disclose it. But meanwhile, Bobby, we're talking about NFL honors and this next year and not hiding and not giving up and keep fighting. And one of Lamar Jackson's, not one of, his main, duo in the backfield, Derrick Henry, he was seen on Instagram over the weekend after the NFL Instagram page wrote, "Will Derrick Henry win Offensive Player of the Year?" Kind of posed that, trying to, just drum up interest and keep teasing the NFL honors Thursday night. Then the King responds, says, "Not this year." I think he knows, and we all know it's probably going to be Saquon Barkley. He says, "Not this year, but I'll be back next year. Better believe that." So it's been the theme. Run it back, especially in offense. Run it back.
There you go.
And they're continuing that theme.
Another theme, certainly another theme that has become recurring theme in recent years, is Marlon Humphrey's unwavering confidence, Sarah, to recruit in free agency, or in this case, just straight up recruit. I don't believe Micah's. I have to look at Micah's contract situation.
I got it.
You do? Okay.
In one of the slides coming up. Yep.
All right. We'll get to that in just a second. But as you can see on the screen, and for those of you who follow Marlon on Instagram, maybe this isn't news to you. And maybe, just maybe, this is Marlon putting on his elite level troll hat, which he tends to do in the offseason when he gets back on social media. But he tagged Micah Parsons at the Pro Bowl, and there's a video of him, and the caption says, "Micah says he wants to come to the AFC. I know a team," with a bunch of eye emojis. So Marlon's in peak off-season form, I'd say. How about you?
Yeah, well, yes, Marlon Humphrey has been known to make lots of tweets like this. And his success rate as a social media recruiter isn't that high. It's not the best. So also he doesn't mind trolling people. He attributed that Micah Parsons says he wants to come to the AFC. What's funny, Bobby, is people who don't know Marlon Humphrey very well. I saw a story hit my timeline from one of the national kind of blog sites. Treating it so seriously, like it was news. Like Marlon Humphrey discloses that Micah Parsons wants to go to the AFC. And they're like, "Now we don't know that it's actually going to happen." Da, 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 da. And I was like, you guys don't know Marlon clearly and his games. But what is funny is last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, I think it was while you were gone, Bobby, is when Marlon Humphrey came back to Twitter. He had a little fast during the season. When he came back, he tweeted on January 21st, "I really forgot how toxic this app is. I love it here." Then Jermaine Illuminar, a former Raven offensive lineman, said, "Hey, I heard you wanted to come play in New York." Like, yeah, right. Like he wants to leave the Ravens to go to the Giants. No, the Giants were in contention for the worst record in the NFL this last year. So Micah, bringing sanity, quote retweets Jermaine, says, "You're really pitching to someone who has Lamar?" So on the surface, would Micah love to play with Lamar and the Ravens? I'm sure he would. Micah is not afraid to say stuff like that. But to your point, I kind of want to bring this into kind of like, I'm gonna come to the salary cap here in just a minute. Obviously, we know about this. Where did it go? Did we move the slide on the Lucic? Here it is. Okay. So we all know over the weekend, even people who don't follow the NBA super closely, the sports world absolutely stunned when the Dallas Mavericks and the Lakers announced that the Mavericks were trading Luka Doncic to the Lakers for Anthony Davis, some other players in a first-round draft pick. And so Micah, who's obviously in Dallas and has gone to plenty of their games, says, yo, what WTF going on in Dallas? And one of his followers says, you're next. Have your bags packed. Okay, so Micah quote retweets that with about eight crying emoji faces. Okay. So Bobby, I think both you and I know the chances of Micah being traded to the Ravens are almost as slim as what we discussed off the top of Myles Garrett being traded to the Ravens. Although this one, I'd give it a little bit more of a chance just because it would be NFC to the AFC. I just still have a hard time thinking the Browns would send him to the Ravens. But right. You would agree, like this is pretty far-fetched, right?
Yeah, but if both are far-fetched, which they are, am I giving the edge to the NFC versus AFC? Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Agreed. Although I'm still not so confident in Marlon's recruiting abilities. But even though I think this is an absolute long shot, and I also think that Marlon is trolling to a great degree. If you wanted to ask me what's the best argument to say that it could happen, it's what you had brought up about his contract. So 2025, he is under contract, but 2026, he's going to be a free agent. And in 2025, his cap hit is $24 million. So even more than Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett just south of $20 million. The Dallas Cowboys have a recent history of not signing their stars until like the last minute. We saw it with Dak, CeeDee Lamb a little bit. And so maybe it's just one of those things where like, hey, we already paid Dak. We paid Lamb. We don't know if we can pay big money over here on the defensive side. And so maybe if we can't strike a deal, instead of losing you next year to being an unrestricted free agent, and the best we can get for you is like a third round comp pick, you know what, we'll go ahead and cut ties now and try to get a couple of future first rounders. So that could be the motivation if they were like feeling like they couldn't make all these big contracts work. So that would be the way for him to get out of Dallas. And then meanwhile, Bobby, because of the Luka Doncic trade, Dallas fans are like absolutely traumatized by the trade. Can't believe that he's gone. So of course, Bleacher Report makes them a little bit even more nervous and was like, what could be some other like Luka type trades in the NFL? And look what they propose. Right when Marlon's putting out all these little troll Instagram posts, they propose, this is Christopher Knox, that the Dallas Cowboys trade Micah Parsons to the Ravens, and in exchange, the Ravens give up Zay Flowers, first ever wide receiver Pro Bowler in Ravens history, Kyle Van Noy, which makes sense because they would need somebody, rushing the quarterback if they're going to give up their Micah, and then a 2025 first round pick. That's what they propose. Would you do that, Bobby? You got to give up Flowers, Kyle Van Noy, and a first round pick, and you got to take on it's $25 million, but it's the last year. You would probably have to, you would have to do a new long-term deal.
Mike is a future Hall of Famer, but that seems like far too much for me.
A little rich, right?
Yeah, but Sarah, this right here, this proposal from Bleacher Report is almost as ridiculous as Adam Schefter's tweet from over the weekend. Okay, This takes the cake. Schefter wanted to do a little bit of crossover, like many have done when it comes to, and we've already kind of alluded to it. What is the NFL equivalent? What's the NHL equivalent? What's MLB's equivalent? So on and so forth.
Right.
Shefty decided to he thought he was going into his bag. Go to the tweet and go check out the comment section. I think
It's bad.
Okay. He thinks that the equivalent, the NFL equivalent of what we saw take place over the weekend, which I'm pretty comfortable saying in modern sports is the most surprising out of left field trade in the history of definitely the NBA and maybe across all the big four professional sports. He thinks that the NFL equivalent to sending Luka to LA for AD and other assets is the Ravens trading Lamar to Cincinnati in exchange for Joe Burrow and more in the middle of the season. And you decided to pull in just a couple of the, I'm sure, more professionally worded tweets in response to Adam. One is from @the_Farbod, who says this isn't even close. It's like the Ravens trading Lamar for Dak. And Spenny's like, no, it's Stafford for Burrow or Lamar.
Yeah.
All I know is this. Shefty's comp, not one of his more accurate tweets out there.
It's one of those where people are like, just stick to reporting what your sources are telling you rather than becoming like this analyst. I think Spenny's closest, Matthew Stafford for, say, like Lamar, because Stafford has a championship ring and he's on the older side. I think Aaron Rodgers might be a little too far on the aging side to compare to AD. Some people are like, well, no, it's a completely different position. So it'd be more like, it's like here in Baltimore, if we were saying Lamar needs a game wrecker on the other side on defense, right? And like either Micah or Myles Garrett is that game wrecker. So everybody in Baltimore is like, get a game wrecker, get a game wrecker, get a game wrecker to complement Lamar. But instead you trade Lamar for that game wrecker,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is. But I like the Stafford one if you're talking about, the same position. But if not, it might be more like a Myles Garrett or a Micah Parsons would be more legit. So then, of course, FanDuel takes it to another level and says, well, what if the Bengals and the Ravens did make a trade between Lamar and Burrow? And so they put up Ravens receive Joe Burrow, and then then the Bengals get Lamar and a 6th-round pick. Are they trying to say that Burrow's of more value than Lamar by adding a 6th-rounder? He's of more value by a 6th-round pick? I don't think the Bengals or the Ravens would do that and just betray their quarterbacks. And I think both fan bases, because they're so bought into their current quarterbacks, I think the majority of both fan bases would revolt.
Yes. This is FanDuel kills me when they do this stuff. They know what they're doing, right? And there's so much conversation that transpires as a result. If I could for a second get back to what you brought in here from over the weekend, just because I know there's been a lot of chatter about this. Speaking of crossover, I think sports fans across the globe kind of have been locked into this. Luka Doncic turns 26 at the end of this month.
Yeah.
The Los Angeles Lakers not only just pulled off a no-brainer move. If you're Rob Pelinka, you didn't have to blink. You didn't have to blink when Dallas called you up and asked about this. But for LA, big picture, the post-LeBron era has now been solidified. Luka can spend the next 15 years of his career as a Laker. And so they have now successfully gone from the Kobe years to the LeBron years to the Luka years.
Well, successful, you're right about the first two. But successfully going into Luka, we're all projecting it'll be successful, and it very well could. But we don't know yet. Because the whole debate is, why would you give up a guy like this that's in his prime, right? And nobody saw it coming. That you were like, I'm not spending $350 million over the next 5 years on this guy. So everybody is like, what did the Mavs know that nobody else does? And most people are speculating. In fact, Charles Barkley was hilarious on Get Up this morning. He's like, when I got to the NBA, I was like, why don't people want? He didn't get drafted as high as he wanted, so he goes to an NBA star. He's like, hey, can I talk to you to get some advice? And he's like, Charles, it's because you're fat and lazy. Like, that's what he told Barkley. And Charles was like, that was the thing I needed to hear. Like, I needed to hear that's why I wasn't wanted, is because he's like, I can get away. Again, this is his words. He's like, I can get away with being fat in high school and still dominate. And I can get away with being fat in college and still dominate. And maybe to a certain extent, I could get away with it in the NBA. But if I wanted to be great, I had to not be so lazy and I had to get my body in shape. So point being, Bobby, you might be right that it could be a successful transition, but it just has me thinking, like, why was somebody with these numbers off to as great of a start? What do you know that the rest of us don't know?
Man, he just brought him to the finals last year. He made an NBA finals appearance, and he's not even going to have a chance to defend that as a Dallas Maverick. And he's viewed pretty much universally, even though he's only been around for 5 or 6 years in the NBA, as the second greatest Dallas Maverick of all time. And we all know, those of us who followed the NBA for years, who's first. That would be one Dirk Nowitzki. So to me, if I'm a betting man, I think the influence of
Bobby, I think you might be frozen, or I'm frozen. Who's frozen here? You guys let us know in the chat.
Of course it's me, because everything decided to just plummet today, right? I mean, why wouldn't that be the case?
Whatever, dude. Look at me. Look what I'm on 2 different screens, one for audio and one on my phone, so it could have been me.
Those days where you just kind of just keep moving. Just keep moving.
Yeah.
Sarah's computer
keep
decided
fighting.
My connectivity is going in and out. There's a shower leak I got my landlord drilling holes in the wall off to the side of me right now. So, yeah, life is just, and I'm walking around with mono and about to give it to the entire city of New Orleans. So,
wait, you have mono now?
No, but I just, I feel like the Buffalo Plague. That's what I have. I'm going to go bring the Buffalo Plague to New Orleans, and I apologize in advance to Louisiana.
Oh, boy. You are on the up and up. You're better than you were last week.
Unbelievable. To finish that point, if I'm a betting man, I'm betting on LeBron's influence, cleaning up whatever it is that needs to be tidied up with Luka, whether that's his offseason discipline, whether that's his nutrition regimen, whatever that might be, conditioning. And I think that Luka will be the next great Laker. And yet, look what they have to decide on while these two are teammates, though. In the short term, it's 2 ball dominant guys. Offenses are built around each one of these players, in LeBron and in Luka. And so how will that work in the short term? That's what I'm really curious on.
Yeah.
And obviously,
will LeBron want to get traded? You know, who knows?
Will LeBron finish his career as a Laker, and will it work as 2 ball dominant players? They still need a center. They need to bring in a center before the deadline. But the reason why we obviously brought this up was because it dominated every single sports headline all weekend long, and even beginning this week. So,
well, we brought it up for that, but also because of the comparisons, the NFL comparisons, and because Mike is like joking about getting traded himself, and because Marlon Humphrey was trying to try to recruit him. So it was like all this perfect storm that it actually is Ravens related.
There you go. Yeah, the NFL comps have been endless. Everybody wants a piece of the pie here. Let's get to some more Pro Bowl notes that you brought in from this weekend in Orlando.
Yeah, so Pro Bowl, Marlon Humphrey was really dominating the Ravens feed, him and Kyle Hamilton to a certain degree. Marlon Humphrey participated in that punt challenge. He did pretty well. I don't know who actually won it. Does anybody know who won that punt challenge? But he also got a pick in the flag football game. So that's what this screen grab is of here. But really, my favorite parts is when Marlon Humphrey became a reporter, and look who he just tracked down to troll. His former teammate, Patrick Queen. Patrick can't get away from him. Listen, when you go to the team that drafted you, when you go to their number one rival within the division, like this is going to continue to happen. So anyway, here's some audio. Did it not get brought in? What the heck? Hold on, let me see if I can get it now. Here's some audio of Marlon interviewing PQ. And by the way, when he first goes up to PQ's in the middle of a different interview with the media person. So at first he's like, why are you even here? But then once his interview was done, he finally decided to talk to Marlon.
Oh, they're doing go ahead, finish up. Actually, it's too late. We're here waiting to interview Mr. Patrick Queen. He'll be coming quite soon, guys. We're here with a former Baltimore Raven, now a Pittsburgh Steeler. PQ, this is going to be a good interview here. Obviously rivals, now. But how was that first season with the Pittsburgh Steelers? Just give us all the meats and potatoes.
Off season, I think you know how off season went since you stirred up the whole thing.
We're going to ask you this one question. This is more for your base. What's the best part of being a Pittsburgh Steeler?
Beating y'all.
Beating y'all. I didn't want to go. See, I was crazy. I was trying not to really go there. And you had to just beat Lamb. No, I wasn't. I literally did it. Oh my God. It's crazy.
It's funny, Bobby, because Patrick Queen always, when it's convenient, likes to play up like I'm a Steeler type now. But then at the same time, he seems to get annoyed when like Marlon wants to play with it, or if Ravens fans want to, kind of give it back to him. Like he's just like, why are you here? Why wouldn't he be there? Why wouldn't he want to do that when he's got the mic? Of course, that's the funny thing. And then he's like, what's the best thing about being a Steeler is beating you guys? Marlon could have been like, that we beat you just 2 times in a row. And then the second time was to like knock you out of the playoffs, right? But Marlon didn't go there. He didn't go there. So anyway, this will never end. It will never end as long as he's a Pittsburgh Steeler.
I was going to say, PQ's got to know. It's just getting started. Marlon loves the opportunity to get after his former teammate. And Kyle Brandt was also in Orlando as well. I believe he and Pat Ricard were hanging out together.
There was a kind of a cool moment where they were, because obviously Kyle Brandt loves him as a angry runner, and he and the Good Morning Football crew have always just loved the story of Pat Ricard as a defensive lineman and playing all these different roles. And now he's full-time fullback, but they I believe these are Kyle Brandt's kids next to him. And so they start talking about how incredibly amazing it is that Pat Ricard gets to play with 2 future Hall of Famers. Here's the audio between these two with Ricard wearing a GoPro.
Pretty cool. So the image this guy blocks for Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I'm one lucky guy for sure.
They should be blocking for him.
How big is
Derrick Henry?
Derrick? He's probably my height, maybe even a little taller. 250 pounds. I'm 300 pounds. But he's super jacked up.
Ripped with
super. Yeah, he's amazing.
Right?
He's ridiculous. He's 101 for sure.
It's an incredible thing, this career that you had, to be in that with those guys. Like 50 years from now, like your great grandkids will be like, you played with those guys?
Yeah, I know. It's been such a lucky situation of them Juice leaving free agency my rookie year, them being a fullback, giving me the opportunity to do it. Yeah, and then
Juice is here too, right?
Yeah, he is. For his ninth time, I think.
I know. It's
or
like
10. I don't know.
It's not a Pro Bowl without Juszczyk.
No, it's not.
But it's you now too. Pat, you're the best. Honestly, awesome.
And here's the Instagram post too. Kyle says, each year I seek out a player for a picture at the Pro Bowl. Just a guy who I'm a fan of. Just one player. This year was easy. 300-pound fullback and modern legend Pat Ricard of the Ravens. Bought stock into this guy early, and now he's at the Pro Bowl every dang year. Love the dude. He also insisted we pose like this. Twist my arm. Last year it was Penei Sewell of the Detroit Lions. Next year, who should it be? So, cool opportunity for number 42, former undrafted rookie who, to Kyle's point, has become a hot commodity in Orlando every single year. And he's a great guy. Love Pat.
And to Kyle Brandt's credit here, most people that stand next to Pat Ricard looks like a beanstalk, right? Like you just do not want to stand next to some of these football players, but Kyle holding his own there, right? Obviously he's been in the weight room, but to me, what was coolest about that audio, which comes from Ravens Productions, is just Pat Ricard realizing the absolute phenomenal opportunity he's had to where Juszczyk leaves right in time for him to be able to come in, and then he's blocking for Lamar, and now he's blocking for Derrick Henry. And for his whole life, he's going to be able to tell his kids, his grandkids, that these two NFL greats that are in the Hall of Fame, yeah, I led the way for them. I led the way when we were on the field. Pretty cool that he gets that. And Bobby, he's one of the very few unrestricted free agents that the Ravens have that I can almost guarantee will be back.
In other news, Ravens are hiring Georgia Tech defensive coordinator Tyler Santucci as their new linebackers coach. Santucci has been a successful DC at Duke and Georgia Tech, as Ian Rappaport noted here, and received interest from NFL teams in the past. Now he lands in Baltimore. He's kind of a hot name around the college ranks, as Ian was sort of alluding to here. And they have just released an official statement as well. John Harbaugh was quoted for saying, "We are excited about the addition of Tyler, who's excelled as a collegiate coach and is fully prepared to make the jump to this level. Tyler's knowledge, passion, and collaborative qualities fit seamlessly within the culture of our coaching staff, and we're excited for him to lead our linebackers group." So there you have it. More shuffling within the coaching ranks for Baltimore underneath John Harbaugh, and this is one of the young hot names that they've tapped.
In the back of my head, Bobby, I was hoping they were going to bring in another former Ravens defensive coordinator like a Rex Ryan or, Mike Singletary or anything like that, more as a joke, but it would have been awesome. Obviously, Rex Ryan isn't going to come back to be a linebackers coach, but I think it says something that Tyler had received interest from NFL teams in the past. And most times when you're coming up from the college ranks, it's kind of a promotion that you're the NFL, but you're not like the defensive coordinator. But it was the Ravens that he felt like, ooh, this is a good spot. And linebacker coaches often, when they succeed, their next step is a defensive coordinator position. So I'm sure for him, he sees a great opportunity, seeing as how many linebackers coaches from Baltimore have eventually moved up the chain.
Does it also say something that it's one and done for Mark DeLeon, who, of course, coached Roquan in Chicago and served as Baltimore's inside linebackers coach just for the 2024 season? And what I mean by that is it extra notable because of the struggles that Trenton ended up having, which led to a demotion. And of course, Roquan early on, prior to a lot of the personnel adjustments that were made around him. So time will tell, but Tyler Santucci, young, fresh, kind of energized, hot name at the college ranks, is going to try and come and lead, obviously, what's been a storied group for Baltimore's defense. So that'll be something to watch. And of course, this took place over the weekend, or maybe it was on Friday towards the end of the week after you had already finished up the show. But Tom Pelissero of NFL Network noting that it was not long that Chris Hewitt was on the street unemployed, Sarah. He, of course, was there was a mutual parting of ways between he and the Ravens, and he got the exact same opportunity in Indianapolis as what he had in Baltimore, and that is pass game coordinator and secondary coach. So he's heading to serve under Shane Steichen with the Colts.
Very happy for Chris. He's been in Baltimore forever. Didn't take him long at all to get another job, and it's essentially the same job he had in Baltimore, pass game coordinator / secondary coach. I think he was also maybe an assistant head coach here in Baltimore. Although I have to tell you, Colts fans are a little bit nervous knowing that the Ravens ended number 31 in pass defense, 32 for most of the year. And so they're like, wait, is this a good move for us? So, but Chris Hewitt has been around for a while. It may have just been time to move on. Glad to see him get his opportunity. That the Ravens are moving on.
Something else that took place over the weekend is the latest in this Justin Tucker story, and Justin Fenton, investigative reporter for the Baltimore Banner, one of the many who have been on top of this. I know I missed all of this last week. You've covered it thoroughly.
You'll be back. I know Bobby's frozen again. Come on back. Because I've spoken already. I've covered the Justin Tucker situation pretty thoroughly over the last couple of days. So, Bobby, I know I've seen people in the chat say they want to hear your take on it. So I was just killing time until you're back. I see you are unfrozen. So continue your thoughts there.
Gosh, and I was just talking like nothing ever happened. I'm sorry about that. So it's again, this is one of those days. But as I mentioned, and maybe I was cut off, but Justin now faces new allegations from 3 massage therapists. This is the latest reports from Justin Fenton and the Baltimore Banner. They've been on top of this since it broke last week. And as Justin noted on X, this marks the 5th Baltimore area spa where massage therapists say he acted inappropriately between 2012 and 2016. Those were his beginning years, of course, in Baltimore. And it brings the number of therapists making claims to 9. Tucker denies any wrongdoing and calls accusations false, as you've covered on the show, because of his statement that came out not long after the initial report dropped last week. And what Justin also noted here is a letter back from 2015. It's dated May 20th, 2015. And this is from one of the massage therapists who has spoken under anonymity to the Banner. And this is something that they shared with the Baltimore Banner from that time back in 2015. And they go, it might be a female. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's a female or not, but this person writes and then of course, based on privacy, they blank out the name. At this time, no longer feel comfortable working on Justin Tucker. He has made it a point in previous sessions to expose his erect genitals to me, regardless of how many times I have to redrape him and tell him he is messing up my drapes. He has done so again in our most recent appointment, dated May 18th, 2015. Additionally, in his most recent appointment, he made it a point to run his fingers along my inner thigh, even after abruptly moving away from him, moving his arm back onto the table, and asking him if he would like to pull his arm down on the side of the table. He ignored me. He did this to me twice. This had happened at the end of the session as I was closing it out, so the session ended anyways. This put me in a very compromising and uncomfortable situation. Upon cleaning up his sheets afterwards, there was a large spot of, Sarah, do you want me to read this full thing, or?
You're almost done. You're almost
okay.
there. Yeah.
All right. I wasn't sure, just based on the wording and whatnot, how we wanted to handle this, and just because of we didn't have a chance to really get into this in our pre-show meeting. But obviously some of this is graphic, guys. We apologize if you have to turn off the show. You do what you got to do. Upon cleaning up his sheets afterwards, there was a large spot of ejaculation on my bottom sheet, right where his genitals would have been while laying on the table. As a professional in this field, it has been reported that Justin upholds a reputation of exposing himself amongst therapists in the past and with past therapists I have worked with. I understand that Justin is an important client to the QG, but as an employee of the QG who has tolerated the previous interactions with him, I no longer feel safe or comfortable working with him. And you also threw in a snippet from the latest on the Banner as well.
Well, no, it's not from the Banner. It's just a reminder that prior to these 3 other accusations, these 3 new therapists accusing him of very similar things, just a reminder that Justin Tucker has posted a message or a statement saying that the allegations are unequivocally false. And you can go to his Twitter account to read his entire statement. It's very lengthy, but he says they're all false and that he's never received any complaints from a massage therapist. He's never been dismissed from a massage therapy or bodywork session, and has never been told that I was not welcome at any spa or other place of business.
So some he said, she says is going on right now. Obviously, the law process needs to be played out. Taurus sent us a super chat and wants to know my take on the situation, and maybe you'll be disappointed on this, Taurus. I'm really allowing the legal process to shake out.
There is no legal process, though.
Well, he hasn't been charged, correct?
He hasn't been charged, but he also hasn't been taken to civil court. If that happens, then we'll have to let that legal process play out. But there's nothing in civil court. There's nothing in criminal court.
There's a process that needs
There's
to
an
take place.
investigation, though, that will need to take place.
Thank you. The NFL investigation, and perhaps even Ravens from a conduct standpoint, needs to take place as well. So while that is handled, I'm standing pat, respecting the allegations that have come forward. 9 people is 9 people. There's no way around that. But obviously the investigation needs to, and I haven't obviously looked into the investigation itself. I'm not doing my own investigating for this. I'm watching it all play out the same way that you guys are as well. So anything more on top of that would be, I think, unwise of me to pontificate on.
All right. Well, of course, the next quick hit leading off of that is Ray Rice, probably the most known for his actions that the Ravens had to cut somebody because of it. But Ray Rice has been officially named the junior varsity football coach at Milford Mill there in Maryland. The school announced that on Friday. The Baltimore Sun did a story on it, and one of the questions they asked Reggie White, who is the varsity head coach and kind of leads the program, the Baltimore Sun said when asked if he has any concerns about Rice's past, White said not one. Crystal Jefferson, whose son Jacob played on Rice's Pikesville team, believes the former running back will be, quote, great at high school coaching. And then, quote, when he talks to the kids, he talks about discipline and how having discipline in football will translate to discipline in life. There's a longer quote there, but just goes to show. Now with Ray Rice, obviously we all saw on video what he did. There's no like, is this true? All that kind of stuff. We all saw it. But as I've said before, when we had Ray Rice on the show, when we had him on to talk about the Jacoby Jones passing, and he talked about how Jacoby was one of the few people that try to lift him up when, everybody else was burying him. This is a JV coach opportunity, but if there's anybody that I've seen go through like a repentance process and do everything that is asked of him, like when you make, because he keeps talking about, discipline, like in this quote, discipline, and before he's talked about decisions and how that can impact you. When you find yourself in a absolute deep, dark hole, and in this case of his own doing, all you can do is either give up on life or repent genuinely and seek redemption by doing everything that's asked of you. And from the outside, that seems to be what Ray Rice has done. So whatever happens with this Justin Tucker situation, it may be that, these allocations are false and he's able to stay with the Ravens, or it may be that the Ravens and the NFL do their own investigation and he could either have a suspension or he could be cut. And the only thing that he can do from there is really follow Ray Rice's lead and do everything you can to repent and genuinely, try to atone for the things that have happened. So, but just interesting that this news comes out the same weekend, that more allegations come out against Justin Tucker.
Not exactly easy stuff to commentate on back to back. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I think you and I both agreed, though, prior to bringing Ray on the show. I think you just eloquently stated what you and I both agreed upon, which was his commitment to bettering himself after a really ugly public moment went viral years ago that we felt like we wanted to have him on the show, not only to get his perspective that day on what was a really difficult time in the wake of, like you mentioned, Jacoby's passing, but also given what we know Ray's commitment level has been in the aftermath. So that concludes our quick hits for today. And we've got some super chats as well to go along. Epi throws us some love. We appreciate you, Epi. Davon says Myles Garrett, or actually, you know what's funny? We had two. Here's the funny part. Davon Barnes is not Davon Smith.
Right.
So I just can't be out here assuming that both of these guys pronounce their names the same exact way. So DS, if you could let me know, are you Davon as well? Or are you Devon? Anywho, he writes, Myles Garrett sounds good and all, but what do you guys think of Khalil Mack possibly? He could be available, and we do need a pass rusher. And of course, he's currently with the Los Angeles Chargers. I haven't thought about it much, but obviously he's a game wrecker. The Ravens handled him really well, though, when they played on Monday night this past year. I don't believe he was a big factor in that game, if memory serves.
What's funny, Bobby, is I absolutely botched this question because I got it in a super chat last week. And for whatever reason, my brain said that he was an inside linebacker.
No.
He's obviously not. And I was like, it's not going to happen with Roquan Smith there. So I definitely messed that up.
You know what?
But
that I'm gonna take credit. I'm gonna take the blame on that one. If you weren't Solo, I think we would have been able to figure that out real quick and nip that in the bud.
Well, I appreciate you trying to take some of that blame, but it was on me, and my brain was completely functioning that day. Like I was definitely fine. So I appreciate you trying to, lay down the sword for me. I appreciate that. But anyway, he's obviously older than these other guys, right? He's about to turn 34. So he's older and, perhaps could be had for less money. So is he going to be the Khalil Mack of old? Probably not, but certainly would be a nice addition to Baltimore.
Appreciate you, Davon, whichever one that is. Not a fan writes, you know how crazy an NBA trade got to be talked about on a Ravens podcast. Y'all getting diverse, Bobby and Sarah. Apparently we are, but we did kind of divvy up
to the Ravens.
Yeah, we made sure that hopefully we connected it all. Not a fan. And I'm so out of it that I forget we're supposed to go back and forth. So you take Reveal.
Okay, Reveal says Ravens haven't had that guy up front since Suggs. It's been 7 years. If Travis Jones gets hurt, there's no pass rush at all. We need a game wrecker up front. The Bills offense bullied us.
They've definitely been searching rather than by committee like it was last year. With last 2 years, really, they've been by committee and top 2, top 3 in sacks as a team. James Green drops in a $10 super chat. We appreciate you, James. And that brings us to the end here. We appreciate you guys. It's going to be an interesting week. I'm headed. Oh, this just I thought was funny.
Yeah.
I brought in this chat. I'll let you read it. It's funny.
Well, I just want to answer it again in case you weren't here at the top of the show. But Fly asks, well, I was getting used to solo Sarah, but what did I miss? Why am I seeing 2 Sarahs? LOL. So if you weren't here at the top of the show, we were late because I was having major technology issues. I think I know what happened, but I don't know how to fix it. And so, but basically on my computer desktop, I can't get my camera to work, but my audio is pretty good. But so I had to come in on my phone, which has a camera to it, but has terrible audio. So I'm doing video by my phone and audio by my desktop, and hopefully I can have this fixed by tomorrow.
Across the board, we appreciate you guys' patience. I'm not. It's no secret over here. I'm feeling like dump, and Sarah pretty much, planned this whole show as she has the last 2 weeks. So there's just a lot going on. I am boarding my flight tonight for New Orleans. My hope is that we're able to bring you a ton of content and hopefully interviews along the way this week on Radio Row. This will be my second experience working it. It's in New Orleans. So hopefully, just like last year, partner, we can come up with some spontaneous content, and I'll try my best to track down as many Baltimore perspectives that I think people would want to hear from as I can throughout the week.
That's we should give a heads up. I don't know that either one of us quite know how these next 4 days are going to go down. Like,
how about this? We haven't really known what the last 2 weeks was going to consist of. This has been between live streaming on a bus that was broken down on the side of a highway in Buffalo, which led to apparently contracting the Buffalo plague. I keep joking about the Buffalo plague. It's really the flu, and then it went into an upper respiratory infection, and I can't get healthy. Between all that and you being solo and the breaking news that came along the way and the sensitive nature that you have to handle the Justin Tucker reporting with, and just everything that you've done the last 2 weeks to make sure that we stay afloat with the unpredictable schedule that's come along with me on a day-to-day basis, it's been very chaotic, a very chaotic start to the offseason. So I just want to say a public thank you to you for the however many. I'm going to continue to do that. But then on top of that, yes, it will be a week where there's just going to kind of be logistical challenge, a brainstorming every single day.
Yeah.
And it could be, you and I are on our split screen and I jump out of the seat in a half second because I see Steve Smith Sr. walking by. So
right.
It could be a really interesting week. But it's always one that we want to make sure at least one of us are present for. And that's why I feel really motivated to get down there.
So we haven't even been able to talk about this because you've been so sick. We didn't even know what was going to happen. So the plan is still to do a noonday live stream, correct?
Yeah, the whole week.
Okay, the whole week. And you will kind of be in and out. So it may need to be that I'm still planning it like I have had the last 2 weeks in case you need to jump. But there will probably be a ton of videos that you're posting that I'm just not a part of, because I'm not going to be able to be like that. You find somebody at 3:00 and then you're like, Sarah, come jump on with me. You know what I mean? Probably. So it may be more something that you post a ton of one-on-one interviews, but some of it we can bring into the live stream, some pertinent quotes that we bring in the live stream to kind of talk about. Maybe that's the best plan going forward. I love how we're doing this brainstorming session live because we just haven't been able to do it off camera.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, if this isn't, a look behind the curtain, I don't know what is. I mean, you and I have barely talked.
Yeah.
I hate to dramatize things, but I've never been this sick in my life. And part of me thinks that I shouldn't be going to New Orleans, but, I don't think I'm contagious at this point in the process. I sound like Squidward, and I have obligations down there with different marketing agreements that I've done and whatnot. And obviously now that I look at the clock, we really got to go. So Asmodeus and Q, we could keep going, but you know how it goes. We got to go. Asmodeus and Q Sticks, thank you both for believing in what we're building. This is your monthly shout out because of the support that you give us as valued members of the Vault Patreon community. So thank you both. We appreciate the love. And if you guys are interested in joining that community as well, you can visit patreon.com/RavensVault podcast to support the show for as little as $1.99 this offseason if you are interested in doing so. So with that, for Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett. We appreciate you guys and all the patience, especially with the late start time. Thank you for joining us. There's over 3,900 concurrents, Tila, on our way out here. So you can go check out off your box. You all set, partner, before we close here?
By the way, while you were out, I kind of put the idea of Tila being like a producer, and she like gave me the eye emojis, and I was like, oh, I should probably talk to Bobby before I make that an actual offer. But she is on top of things every day, and she's here every day. So I'm like, maybe we're onto something here.
Maybe. Listen, you've been making all of our decisions for us these last 2 weeks, so I think you got proper treatment right now. You're the reason why we've stayed afloat. So just wanted to say thank you again to you. Thanks to all 3,900 plus of you for joining us this afternoon. And the next time you'll hear from us, I will be on Radio Row in New Orleans tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern. Sarah will be in Columbus. She'll have, I'm sure, the logistical stuff taken care of, and we'll be ready to go on Tuesday, February 4th. So until then, I'm Bobby Trossett for Sarah Ellison. Thank you guys for spending your afternoons with us, and we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you, or you seeing us, in under 24 hours from right now. Talk to you then.